Hi, everyone. Welcome to Zero Shot, the AI podcast without the hype. I'm James Gauci, the CEO of Cadence. And as always, I'm joined by Llew Jury, the managing director of Advancer. Llew,
hey,
how's it going?
Yeah, well, mate. Hello to everybody. How's things?
Very, very well. If you're joining us for the first time in this show, we try to cut through the noise to bring you the technical and the business reality of the AI landscape. We're moving into episode 5 today, which is really exciting. And we're touching on a few different topics. What have we got on the agenda, mate?
There's two major things. This episode 5 is going today, James, and cutting through the business tool stack hype. We're really looking at what productivity is truly about now in 2026 and what's hype. And I think that's, Zero Shot. It's the anti-hype podcast, right? So it's awesome. I'm looking forward to this one.
Fantastic. Well, whether you're a long-time listener or you've just found us, we reckon that these insights that we've come up with today are going to be critical for anybody navigating this transition into an AI-powered universe. But we've got a fantastic sponsor, Llew. Do you want to sing their praises?
Yeah, look, thank you, James, again to the guys at Prompt Cowboy. This episode is brought to you with thanks to Prompt Cowboy. They're the fastest way to turn everyday business tasks into automated workflows. I've been using them every day, and training lots of people on them. I'm getting lots of feedback from amazing people, like all my clients and to the CEO level now using Prompt Cowboy. And so, yeah, from AI prompts to automations, they wrangle hard. So head over to promptcowboy.ai and get your business writing smoother than ever.
Writing smoother than ever. I like that.
I like it. Yeah.
I like the juxtaposition of like a cowboy Western kind of feel and all of this techie AI high level stuff.
Beautiful.
It's kind of like right? Cowboys versus Aliens. Did you see that movie years ago?
Yeah, Cowboys. But I was just more referring to there's a lot of cowboys out there in the AI space, maybe, and cowgirls. So I think to me, it's a great play. But yeah, let's move on. What are you wanting to get out of today's pod, James? What's your going to be your takeaway, you reckon?
I think that I'm going to challenge a little bit some of the assumptions that we have about the current landscape of AI services. And when I was reading through our list of things to talk about, I might have some hot takes, and hopefully there's some new stuff coming down the pipeline that might excite people. So let's get straight into it. We've got a couple of smaller AI startups, so they're not really small. They're kind of big in startup terms in 11 Labs and Manus. From your perspective, Llew, do they really have a strategic moat, or will they be integrated? I mean, Manus has already been integrated by Facebook at this point, Meta. Is 11 Labs going down the same track, or what's your take on this?
Yeah, look, really hot. And I suppose a bit of background for everybody in terms of tools. Like today, we're not talking about the general AI tools. We're talking about tools that we're actually using on an hourly and daily basis, and what James and I sort of advise to clients and actually use. So these are some of the takeaways that and learnings we've got, and literally listeners and viewers, it's changing every hour of every minute. For example, in the last sort of 48 hours, I've been experimenting with Manus's agentic mode, and there's a new feature in Manus. Remembering that Manus just before Christmas got purchased by Meta, the owner of Facebook and Instagram, for quite a bit of money, and they come out of now Singapore. And to James's point, they're an organization that really is a bit like, they're probably in the anthropic world of wanting to be different, but doing things right in terms of GPTs and agentic AI.
Singapore's regulatory approach is quite progressive, but still socially orientated as well, which is really interesting. A good kind of environment for a startup like that to thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've always been ahead of the curve in that way. And with, the Singapore sort of flavor and feel backed by MIT, and MIT in that real eastern coast of the US sort of doubling up is great. So I've been on Manus for a long time now, and we use Manus strategically. I've just set up Manny, actually, James, on Manus. And Manny is now my Jarvis. And we're going to talk about OpenClaw and all that in a sec, about the tool stack there, and the agent harnesses. But you can now, as a consumer or a business person, if you like, go into Manus and actually go to the agent tab on the left and actually then construct your whole, your own Jarvis, your own personal assistant, your own agent that's going to do something. So what I've done, James, is hooked up Manus via Telegram. Now, Telegram is like WhatsApp or Signal. Telegram seems to be the one that a lot of developers and the AI world use to sort of do voice AI and chat AI. And every morning,
end-to-end encrypted, and a long history of standing up to kind of, I think they originally if I recall correctly, came out of Russia, like they extracted themselves out of Russia in the face of some pretty strong authoritarian kind of situations. Who they wanted backdoors into the application and things like that. So that there's a sovereignty piece in there,
Yeah.
calling back to our last conversation. But that's in my experience why developers and sovereign technologists, you might call them, tend to gravitate towards Telegram.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of Telegram, it's a great tool to actually start your agentic mode. Now, the reason we do agents, it should be around two core things. One is producing revenue or producing real world efficiency gain. So I'm aiming for a 50% uplift before 6 a.m. every morning, James. And I've just hooked this up that Manny through Telegram is going to at 6 a.m. give me everything for the day, and not just a sort of a basic NAN type agent AI, hey, mate, today's meetings are this. It's actually going to go and do research on every single client I'm going to see. It's going to look for any blind spots that I haven't replied to any emails on them. And it's actually then going to do research around what I need to talk to them about for that day. So it's actually can actually go into my Google Drive. It can go into my proposals. It can go into the client folders. It can go into my calendar and basically come back and give me that. On top of that, it's going to give me a sort of like a Google home type, hey, play me the news, Google type thing. It's going to give me what happened overnight about AI, and it's going to give me the updates because, James, we live and breathe until about 11 o'clock at night, and then we sleep and we wait for what transferred, what happened, transpired
Yeah,
overnight.
we wait for business hours for the rest of the world to happen. Yeah.
Right, correct, to catch up to us. So look, that's what I've been playing with Manny, and I'll report back every week on how that's going because basically it's got a strategic mode at the moment because it's better than Google Gems. So if you're playing with Copilot and you've got the agents there, they're very one dimensional. If you're playing with Gemini and Gems, it's still pretty one dimensional. It can hook into your G Suite, of course, but really their strategic moat has to stay ahead of the curve. And they need to keep bringing out these type of advanced agentic modes for the general business community. James, what about you? You've been building technology. What do you see as the future behind some of these strategic moats?
It is pretty interesting. Probably the most concise way of putting it is that the marginal cost of intelligence that's baked into each of these products that we're going to be talking about today is dropping substantially. It's becoming heavily commoditized to the point that the only real cost is the GPUs that you're running it on, which is why the likes of OpenAI and their peers are buying up loads and loads of RAM chips and GPUs and causing panic buying of computer components, even on the used market. So when your only cost is electricity and the hardware to run it on, and you can get models like, let's say, one of the later Qwen models. Qwen brought out their latest model the other day that requires quite a lot of GPU horsepower to run, but is competitive with the likes of Claude and ChatGPT. At a certain scale, it doesn't. It actually costs you less to run a system like that than it does to buy the $100 Claude Max subscription for everyone, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. To speak specifically, on the case of 11 Labs, which is a kind of a moving feast at the moment. We don't know where that one's going to end up because 11 Labs made a huge splash a couple of years ago when they created this collection of products and models of their own, all proprietary and fully integrated. And those models were voice models. So they text to speech. So they produce voice. You could design your voice. You could clone voices. The latency was much better than competitors at the time. And they've since gone on to build a range of product offerings around these capabilities that they have.
And they've got a really good bit of kit now, don't they, James? In terms of they've got their sort of creative studio, and then they've got their agentic studio. And I've now got clients actually using it as for the creative studio. Marketing departments are using it to do things like record a CEO's voice for a presentation using AI, because the CEO can then come on after that event and actually talk about it. And then on the flip side, another person can log into the agentic mode and actually run full agents, which I might talk about a bit later on. But there's amazing things happening with 11 Labs, and they've just done another round, and they're really growing, and they've got an amazing workforce, and yeah, they're pretty hot right now, aren't they?
Yeah, their rule is being challenged in a major way by Qwen and by by developers like us, especially in the enterprise space where sovereignty and running on your own compute and security is really, really important.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing that we've seen over the course of the last, let's say, 3 years at this point, it's the larger businesses who have a strong requirement for sovereignty or security, who tend to pioneer what becomes the available product to small or medium enterprises.
Yeah.
So, for example, with DeepSeek running in law firms because they could afford the data centers to run that kind of compute. And they would run it across all of their legal precedents and torts. And I don't know, I didn't do a law degree. But I think what we've seen since then is this democratization of open weight models like Llama and like Qwen and like Kimi, Minimax now, which is another Chinese model that's come out. That what's happening to voice AI is what has happened to LLMs. So Qwen recently released their text-to-speech models, all of the exact same capabilities at the model level that 11 Labs offers, except as a custom software developer, we can take those models and create a fully duplexed conversational AI system for a low five-figure sum. Running in Sydney with super low latency. We're not waiting for an API call to go off to Virginia, US East on AWS and come back halfway across the world. It's all happening locally, and it's treating data with like the highest level of security and privacy. And that's something we're actively working on, which is really exciting. But that's not going to be available to everyone yet.
No, that's right.
It'll take another year. 11 Labs will go through another kind of maturity phase where they go, okay, well, what is our business really if we're not the models? And we're seeing that kind of dynamic happen over and over in different particular use cases.
We've sort of got the commodity versus customization really starting to come to the fore, haven't we? And it's the commoditization of intelligence.
Yeah, say it 10 times fast, Llew.
Commoditization of intelligence. There we go. I can say it better faster. But it is that. And what it is really around, we get to these threshold limits, don't we? And by that, to the listeners, what we mean is we all have a dabble. We try things out. We test. We do the test and learns. We do the proof of concepts. We actually put it into a customer. The customer then puts their previous 30 to 40 years worth of effort and energy into that proof of concept. And then they expect human type latency, or zero latency, which is basically being able to talk over each other. And sometimes those cloud-based models don't actually cut the mustard, do they, James?
That's right. And it's really the quality that is becoming indistinguishable as well. We're not just seeing that, oh yeah, we can deploy it and it is secure, but it's a little bit worse or it's not as good at particular use cases. It's maintaining the level of quality that we expect out of a frontier model. Depending on the use case that you're talking about, you could get away with it much cheaper than using a frontier model because they force you into their they don't force you, but they like you to use their most advanced models, generally speaking. So yeah, it's having a pretty big democratization effect and a commoditization effect. And the marginal cost of intelligence is dropping pretty significantly. Like one particular case, we're talking with a customer about running their own models on AWS GPU infrastructure based in Sydney, and it's voice-based stuff. So the Qwen text-to-speech models, and what they're talking about is, okay, well, we need that conversational interaction, low latency, but we need to know what this is going to cost us so that we can then price up this product.
Yes.
And there's always a tension there. But what was great is through this prototyping process that we're doing with the customer, we found that, yeah, sure, to run one instance is going to cost you, $1,000 Australian a month just to keep it turned on and ready to go. But once you get up to 100 and 1,000, it's only kind of $4,000 and $5,000 a month in infrastructure fees. So that's a great kind of curve to have a look at to see and monitor over time to see how closer to one we can get with this kind of custom infrastructure, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it's really coming down in price, isn't it? The other piece to that, not only is price, is, as you say, and just remind everybody that it's not going to be perfect, but there's models coming through, and there's one that NVIDIA have just done some testing on, which is the Personaplex, which is the Moshi project. So basically, Personaplex allows, again, like that Qwen, that zero latency, so everybody can talk over each other, rather than sort of getting the robocall effect, if you like, if you've ever done some dialing into, or robocalls have called you. But Really cool. And I suppose the question I've got for you, James, is when does AI stop being a toy? When do you move on from POCs? And when does it actually start becoming a real business asset? Really, do you have some examples there?
Yeah, you used a key word there, which is asset, I think.
I thought you were
And
going to say toy.
no, we will love the toys. I think whether you can consume AI as a service or you can build it as an asset, and they have different kinds of costs. Like one is operational expenditure, one is capital expenditure.
Yeah.
One you keep and have to maintain, and you make the gamble essentially that you're going to get more value out of keeping and maintaining than consuming as a service. But when you build your own asset, you get the opportunity to customize it in the ways that make you uniquely strong. So there is always a tension there, and that's why it has to come back to use cases. But I think it stops being a toy when you're getting measurable, repeated return on investment, and that isn't just on the toy or the service or the asset that you've built. That's on you as a business person to come in and interrogate whether or not it is delivering the value that you expected when you went and built the system or adopted the system in the first place. And I see a lot more toy usage up until now. It's just starting to change. I think there's been a lot of toy usage. Everybody's been burned by the toy usage in the form of Microsoft Copilot license fees. And now it's like, oh, well, we won't make that $20,000 mistake again. How do we actually get value for this money that we're spending? But yeah, that's a high level perspective, but it is, I think, a valid one. Llew, how about you, mate?
Well, I was just going to say, I think we probably need to move to the next sector, which actually covers off Microsoft 365 and
Mm,
who is winning the friction battle for the average worker. I think, the Google workspace versus the Microsoft 365 workspace. James, is the jury out, or is, pardon the pun, or is is there a clear winner starting to emerge in that sort of that workspace, that 365 versus the G Suite type thing?
mm.
What are you seeing there?
I in our shop, we're a Google Workspace shop, as most small tech companies are that aren't a Microsoft service provider. And from what I've seen, Google's probably the last. Like we talked about, I think a couple of episodes ago, we were talking about how Google's trying to be a bit of an AI version of Apple, where they wait for everybody else to make the mistakes and then they throw $100 million at a problem and come up with, maybe not even the best solution, but the 80% solution that most people are deliriously happy with. Like you were talking about agentic workflows before with Manny. You talked about a scheduled action that you've given it. Scheduled actions are in Gemini now. You can set those up. It's not a non-trivial exercise. Or
But are
is it?
they
Sorry, it is a trivial exercise.
and sort of they're sort of these, to the last point, people are dabbling, they're setting up a gem, they're doing a schedule access. Are they
Mm,
then coming back and actually using them, or are they going, yep, tick, did an AI course, got a gem set up, awesome. And then, actually, the same with Microsoft with Copilot. That was awesome. I'm just going to go back to my day job and
mm,
get all this email done and maybe use Copilot to help me with a
mm,
bit of email here and there. But, I actually think, to me, Google absolutely, I think, has a great kit. I think they have the best tech. We use Google all the time. However, I know that a lot of my clients, and we also then use Microsoft too, are still baked into 365. The number
mm,
one reason they're using 365 is because of the authentication, because of that little green shield that appears at the top right when you're using Copilot. People aren't going to move away anytime soon. So it's not so much who's winning, but who's moving along the journey with what these large tech companies are trying to put in front of you, whether it's
mm,
agentic AI or it's trying to increase your usage of PowerPoint with AI, or Excel and things like that. But
mm,
James, there's challenges for them. For example, Claude have a plugin, which is Anthropic's model, of course. Claude has a plugin for Excel, and they go out to market on that, don't they? And they sort of say,
mm,
hey, even if you're an Excel Microsoft user, come in and use our plugin. We're starting to
mm.
see these plugins and Chrome extensions start to
Yeah.
appear.
The aggregations are beginning to happen left, right, and center. Every AI product company is just integrating with every other AI product company because nobody wants to be left behind. I mean, one anecdote I can give you about Claude is that every written artifact that I've asked the Claude AI agent, like the conversational interface, I'm not talking about Claude Code here, but every time I ask it to produce a document, it's now producing a docx or a PPTX documents, so
Yeah.
Microsoft formatted documents. And that's a pretty significant departure for me because I'm used to it outputting Markdown format in an artifact, which I can then click and go, yep, make that into a Google Doc.
Yeah.
So it's clear that Claude and Anthropic generally are trying to kind of maybe get more market share in the Microsoft world in ways that Google just won't because of obvious reasons. Yeah, there's an interesting dynamic starting to form there. But as far as friction is concerned, like to go back to the original question, I think people are just going to stick with what they've got unless they get, like if the pain of leaving is greater than the pain of staying, they're going to stay.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So if one of these frontier companies does something that is undeniably 5
Huge.
or 10 times better,
Yeah.
people are just going to stick with what they know and ostensibly trust,
I
because
agree
of
with
the
you.
pain of leaving.
Yeah, I agree with you, James. And I think that there's sort of this whole question, is it worth paying for a third-party tool if AI is already doing it in my email and docs? And I think we're at the start of 2026 and we're at the start of that journey. I actually think that people are so busy in their day jobs still. The doomsdayers on, social media haven't affected them. They're going to lose their jobs tomorrow type stuff. Everybody's still very busy. So I'm with you. My thesis is that basically people will use the technology provided to them by their business and their company, and they'll use that inside until there's a watershed moment. So
Mm.
I think it leads to another big question about software fatigue. And, again, this whole last year, there was a huge amount of software thrown at everybody, and it's a bit sort of what's going to stick. And we've already done our tier rankings of GPTs, but there's also sort of a lot of software and tool stacks that people got sort of set up an account and have used it once but never gone back.
Mm.
And I think that there might be a bit of software fatigue creeping in to teams, and they're like, hang on, I just want to go back to the basics and use this one platform in what I'm comfortable with because I know this is going to use it. And I
Mm.
think that's where Google and Microsoft have got the sort of the jump on the market.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, we've been at the front row seat of the digital transformation wave that has happened over the last 20 odd years at this point. As workers, when somebody comes in and says, we've got this brand new tool, it's going to solve all our problems, the eyes roll back in their head. It's a here we go kind of attitude. Here we go again. And for the most part, that's a justified attitude, I think.
Mm.
But the dynamic that's beginning to affect that is that the software as a service products that we're used to consuming know that they're the writing's on the wall for them in a number of ways. Like, you look at the CRM providers; they're trying desperately to become the fully integrated AI CRM, every single one of them. And it's their legacy that's holding them back. In fact,
Yeah.
the
They're all becoming
difficulty that
AI companies, and it's an interesting space within the VC world as well, within the investment world, because there's a lot of, I suppose, VCs that have it purely invested in SaaS and haven't sort
Mm,
of distributed out their portfolio and their investment
mm.
thesis. So it's going to be an interesting space to watch.
Here's
We want
one
to,
hot take before we move on is
yeah,
that I think that the fact that the cost of intelligence is becoming marginally far lower, which is leading to the cost of software becoming marginally far lower.
yeah,
All of us, so we've got the things that the people used to do, which is build the software, being kind of eaten for lunch by AI generally. And the question then becomes, okay, well, what's going to happen to the last frontier, which is infrastructure?
mm,
As the GPUs and the servers and stuff like that. That's already commoditized. So we're building, speaking, a completely commoditized stack, which then impacts us as business people because we're going to be posed the question of why are we spending tens of thousands of dollars every single month on these software as a service products when we could build our own thing for the same price or less and have AI agents run and maintain it indefinitely.
yeah.
And improve it as well. And I'm talking like 3 to 5 year horizon on that particular prospect.
Well, the
But
markets, yeah, the public markets predict that, right? And that's where the Atlassians and some of the large SaaS providers have really struggled in public markets in the last few weeks because of those thematics. So it's a good segue, James, into our sort of tools of the week and then a bit of
mm,
news. And I was just going to talk about some of the experiences that we're doing right now with clients and really tying in some of the stuff that we're doing in call centers. Around freeing up staff and actually having training for staff but also training for AI. And there's this whole new concept of if you're going to train your staff in how to do something from a change management point of view, you actually need your AIs to be constantly trained and things like that. So we've been using 11 labs in an organization for about 8 months, and we've been getting great traction. It's gone beyond a proof of concept. And effectively, we're now tracking in return on investment to the tune of where we can actually, we have staff that put up their hand and say, well, with less phone calls coming in, I'd like to go and work in certain areas of the business. And we've had redeployments within the business that needed to fill gaps. And these people have gone on to higher paid roles and things like that, which is incredibly exciting. But the big thing that's been coming through, and we've been using 11 labs within the call center setting and using IVR, old phone systems, where you sort of push 1 for this and 2 for that. And if you push 1, you actually get to talk to, you can actually talk to the digital agent. And what I love about this client is that they say up front, if you want to talk to our digital agent, press number 1, or if you'd like to talk to the call center, press number 2. We're in that hybrid world now of human in the lead, because we've decided to do it that way, but also human in the loop, which is really, really important. So yeah, been using 11 labs and really testing it. We've had a big strategy session last Friday where we actually got their leadership team, their board, shareholders, everybody to go into breakout rooms and basically go and test all the AIs. So they have about 12 or so AI that they're using, assistants, we give them names. And effectively, we went and tested 3, but the number 1 we tested was the 11 Labs voice AI. And we then are gathering all that feedback together to then keep doing that improvement and that training within the 11 Labs platform, which has some great, I won't go into it too much detail, but it has some great testing environments and workflow environments, and you can really see what you need to do in there. And then we're also going to be testing models. So it's currently running on Gemini, but we're actually testing Qwen as the actual upscale model to make it even better. So James, you must be seeing some other things as well, but yeah, like that is now rubber hitting the road in the presentations. It's saving this much money per month, per year, even with AI experts like ourselves coming in and helping them out and guiding them. There is a large return for these organizations starting to appear in the P&L. And so, yeah, keen to hear your thoughts on that too.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we're those kinds of systems that can be put together in a custom way for organizations. The affordability of those kinds of solutions is steadily dropping. I was talking to a sole trader the other day who does who does auditing for a living. And when you've got an ISO standard for something and you've got a set of unstructured inputs like dictated voice or something as you're going through a document or going through an environment, testing it, producing a structured document is bread and butter for AI. And at this point, and with a very high degree of accuracy, it really puts humans in that audit seat. And this auditor is going to become the auditor of the auditor, which is kind of a strange kind of dynamic.
I love this audit and compliance sort of world, James. I think it's just the low-hanging fruit for everybody, isn't it? That you can really see the return on investment quickly. And what are they using, James? What are they doing in terms of the technology stack behind and sort of some of the ROI that they're seeing?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to unpick at the moment is what's the interface that this person would like to use to develop this system, which has to be secure and has to be onshore and et cetera, as is our kind of position as a service provider. But for this sole trader who's turning over, $200-300, not a lot of money, $200,000 or $300,000 a year, we're looking at an investment of between 30 and 50,000 to allow them to increase their take-home profit by about $100,000 a year.
Right, there you go. Material. That's material.
Yeah, and then you're talking about finance options and how much we can claim an R&D tax incentive and things like that, just to make it a more economic win for everybody involved. So that's my kind of story of the week. But the other news items that I've seen floating around, and this is harking back to as recently as 2 episodes ago, is OpenClaw is now acquired, is the word that's get thrown around, but it's not an acquisition. They've essentially bought out the creator of OpenClaw. And for those who haven't kept up to date with this one, OpenClaw used to be called Maltbot, which used to be called Claudebot, and it's the do-everything assistant. It can use an entire computer. You just give it instructions and off it goes. So OpenAI either saw this as such an opportunity or saw it as such a threat that they were just like, all right, well, let's get this guy and we'll make him build our agent products for us. So
I heard he did the rounds, James, in terms of he was doing a couple of high level meetings and yeah, OpenAI got him, didn't they? And it's obviously where they want to go. They probably need that, don't they, James? They probably
yeah.
need. We've talked about earlier in this pod about agentic AI and the different platforms, Google and Microsoft, but yeah, definitely OpenAI needs something a bit like the
Mm.
Manny from Manus, don't they?
Yeah, and they use their conversational interface as their agentic interface. They've got their builder and developer type tools. They've got Codex, which is the Claude Code competitor, and I just don't think they've cracked that agentic nut yet. They
This
don't
could
have
be
the
it.
best. Maybe they don't yet have the best harness. They don't yet have the best models for these kinds of behaviors. It's really a question of whether this is going to allow them to leapfrog by association with that rampant viral fan base that OpenClaw developed what seemed like overnight or over a single weekend. So
It's only 2 weeks, James.
I
It
know.
feels, again, like dog years. It feels like a year's worth of content and work, doesn't it? It's awesome. We're still using it in Slack. It's still top shelf, running on the Claude back end, and yeah, we're loving it too. Again, we love all that. James, before we finish up and do the takeaways, what's the one tool that you've used this week that moved the needle for you?
The one tool that I used that moved the needle for me was Claude, actually. Usually I'm a heavy Gemini user, but now, and I'm pretty hands on with the language models because I'm usually in crafting documents, trying to derive insights from vast swathes of information. So getting models or systems to distill all that information down for me really efficiently and effectively and accurately is where I like to do my best work. And the latest versions of Claude, the 4.6 models, they're just
Game changing.
absolutely unreal. I cannot sing their praises enough. Like just one generation between the Gemini Pro 3 model and the Opus 4.6 model, which is a zero point 0.1 difference with their last one. And I'm now gravitating back to Claude for my day to day
Yeah.
because it's so much more effective, which is just wild.
It is wild. And what I'm finding now is there's this PR strategy now filtering down into the OpenAI world. I had one of my staff request to change, and we all use OpenAI, we all use ChatGPT, but change their account. And they said, look, I'm happy not to have my OpenAI ChatGPT $30 a month. I'd like a Claude account now, please. And that happened a
Mm,
couple of days ago. So we're
mm,
starting to see because in our organization, you can have whichever AI does best for you.
mm,
Yeah, we've got a very open platform there. So, mate, really quickly, mine was Napkin.ai. I had
mm.
to do this report for this client on this big strategy that we're doing. And I actually took all these pieces of wordy content and uploaded them to Napkin and then made some amazing bullseye sort of graphs and presentations. And Napkin.ai is awesome for that. Get an annual license for 100 or so bucks, and it's a great tool.
I'll have
Um,
to check that one out. That sounds up my alley, that one.
Oh, it's awesome for those presentations. So let's dive into the takeaways and then in the next episode, James. What were your key takeaways from today's pod?
Look, I think we're seeing a lot of interconnectedness in the AI landscape at the moment, which makes it hard to kind of pick just one or pick a collection. So novelty is great and trying out the new tools is great. But in business, we're often making the kinds of decisions that are going to impact us over the 1 to 2 to 3 year horizon. Especially with technology, I think sticking to something that is integrated with the other tools that you use for a defined period so that you can realize the return on investment before you go and chase the shiny thing again is probably where the value lies for the near term anyway. What about you, Lou?
Yeah, James, ROI has come up about 100 times. I'm sure if we did a word cloud out of today, ROI would be there. So it's about measuring it over time, the time that you recover, and not just chasing the cool features, as you said, not just
Mm,
going after and having a dabble with everything, but actually getting
mm,
measurable ROI. If I'm going to use this tool, where's my return going to be, both in my
mm,
time, my people, and the business cost? So
mm.
yeah, really cool, great pod. And so James, what are we going to talk about in the next episode?
We're going to start talking about the clouds that power all of this AI. We've talked a little bit about hardware. We've dabbled around hardware, but we haven't had a really strong conversation about it. And the hoarders of the hardware, the AWS, the Azure, the Google Cloud platforms of the world. We're going to talk about them and their unique positions within the market and what their unique selling propositions are and the ROI that you might expect
Super interesting
from each of them for Australian businesses. Yeah, it'll be great.
Super interesting, and especially around AWS, Amazon Bedrock, and how that sort of fits in, and then the Google, BigQuery and the GCP
And
and all that.
Vertex
So,
and
yeah, Vertex. Yeah, it's going to be a great episode. Looking forward to it. Thanks for joining Zero Shot. And that's pretty much it for today's session. We're building Zero Shot for the builders, the skeptics, the strategists who are actually moving the needle. We're the strategists move the needle, aren't we, James?
We like to think so, don't we?
Well, we hope so. We hope so. But here's the thing. We just don't want to talk to you. We genuinely enjoy seeing who's exactly in the room. And so whether you're a CEO in Sydney or a developer in Austin, in good old Texas, an operator anywhere in between, your perspective is what keeps this show anti-hype and clarity first. Follow us on LinkedIn, search for James Gauci and Llew Jury and the Zero Shot page. Drop a comment on our latest pod as well in any of the different...
Yeah, we want to hear your feedback. Like, what are we getting right? What are we getting wrong? What's working and what's not? Now is the time to kind of tell us what you need.
Correct. And also
guests.
We're going to be bringing through some great guests in the future, but if you've got a guest lined up, please let us know. Also, we're going to get Llew to drop in a couple of those links, like to Manus and Napkin and 11 Labs, into some of the channels, so everybody can click into those. So
thanks,
Llew.
James.
Did you want to thank our sponsor?
I would love to. A huge thank you to PromptCowboy.ai. They're helping businesses harness AI without the guesswork, and whether you're building smarter systems, automating processes, or just want AI that actually works, Prompt Cowboy has you covered. So thanks to PromptCowboy.ai for powering this show. Mosey on down to their site and discover how much time you could be saving.
Awesome. Look, we'll see everybody at the next episode. Thanks a lot for today. And this episode was produced by Llew Jury.
Thank you, Llew. You've been listening to Zero Shot, the anti-hype AI podcast. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.